Welcome to the next lesson. Today we are going to be getting into CSS number 5, getting started, where we're going to learn our first foray into CSS. So as usual, you can open up the lesson and either use the PDF as a guide through the lesson. You can watch this video, or you can get right into it with the glitch template, which is what we're going to do. Let's see what we're doing today. We are going to build, a lot of this is already built for us, so it's actually different than the previous lessons, so watch out for that. But let's say you already have that under your belt, you know what to expect. Looks like we're going to be changing some declarations. A lot of it's done for us. We're removing a couple of things to see their effect. That's a good tactic for learning CSS, kind of break things to see how they work. And then we're going to get started with the first few properties. Background color and text color looks like it. Okay, so when we get into the activity, I'm going to have it open another screen, but we'll see that the same instructions are here. Creating a div, creating divs and classes and talking about those, removing comments and testing style changes, paddings and margins, and then adding styles elements throughout our HTML document. So let's get started, and I'll go slow so we can get through some of the things that are going to be really important down the line. So I'll have this open in another tab. And we're going to go into our index.html, where unlike previous lessons, we are going to see some code already written out for us. So we're going to take it a little slow, we're going to read the directions. You'll notice the HTML section is already filled out. Complete the HTML section by adding the appropriate class and ID attributes listed in the comments above each div element. So we know that a div is just an empty box. But now we're going to be differentiating those boxes by giving them different names. We're going to be eventually creating things with classes and IDs. But step one will be to just examine this document. And there are going to be a couple of prompts here. So we're going to start here with line 23. For this H1 element, we are going to add a class attribute of div class and an ID attribute of div1. So we're adding div class, and capitalization does matter, so make sure you write it out exactly. And we're going to give it an ID of div1. Let's see if we have any changes so far. Not yet. Add a class. All right. This next one, we're going to add a class attribute called div class to, and add an ID attribute to div2. But to which ones? Hold on. Well, let's just give it a shot. Let's give this one a div class. Let's actually keep it here. Add div class and an ID of div2. Yeah, that makes sense. And this one is just an example. Okay, so we have our H1 with a class of div class and an ID of div1, and then another div with the same class name but a different ID. So if we move over to step 2 in the directions, we can move into the styles.css. So we're out of index.html, we're in styles.css. And the first thing we're going to do is learn about comments. So this right here and this are comments. They are done by hitting the on Mac it's the command key and then the slash symbol, which will automatically create these, or you can do it manually by hitting a slash and then a star, and then this is where the comment ends. So let's practice that a little bit. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these. Once that one is removed, you move the second one, and now this entire class is up for use. The way to comment it out is you include the slash and then an asterisk, and then another one here to end this particular comment. Now you can see that, hold on. This code right here works. but this one underneath doesn't. It's because the comment starts graying out the code here and ends here, and this is a whole different comment that is going to start here and end here. There is no comment over here, so this is fine. It's just complaining that the rule is empty. That will go away if you just add a rule. And to comment this one out, you could just do slash or forward slash asterisk and then asterisk forward slash. And now this code can work. So it's kind of like a pair, and it comments out and comments in anything you want it to. So I'm going to remove these. And we know from our index HTML that div class, now it's going to have all these, which we're going to get into. It's going to affect this H1 and this H1, this div, because they both have the same class. Classes you can use everywhere as many times as you want. IDs have to be unique. That's why this one is div1 and this one's div2. So let's just see what happens when our div class has all of these properties attached to it. We start to see a little bit here. I'm going to add a couple things like div class border solid red 1px. And we see that because this has a div class and this has a div class of the same name, they are now both receiving the same properties. All these margin and padding changes as well as this border. Down here we have our div1 ID. Classes are defined by a period followed by the name, and IDs are defined by a hashtag followed by the name. So if we go here to div1 and we add a border of solid blue 1px, we'll see that our ID with ID of 1, our div1 right here, has now become blue. If we take a look at our index HTML, we'll see it's because this div1, it only applies to this h tag. So let's just keep going with that. We're going to erase what we added, and we're going to follow the next instruction in the activities. So it says to remove the comments, which we've done. And now we're going to play around with our paddings and margins. It says in style.css, that's the file that we're currently in, add the following inside the div class declaration. Background color yellow, similar to what we just did, but we'll teach you another property here. This is how you make the background of a particular element a different color. Background color yellow. So which one should this be applied to, the H1 or that div? Answer, of course, is both, because they both have the div class declaration. Now we'll see the borders are going to disappear and these are both going to turn yellow. And that happened to both of them. Now it's asking us in the styles.css, so we'll go back, remove all the margin properties. So I'm going to start here at margin top, right, bottom, and left, and we are going to remove them. Now, can't tell what the margins are, but you will see them when they go away. So I'm going to refresh now, and we'll see that things are changed. It's because there used to be these specific declarations for margin on the top, left, right, and bottom, which follows the rules of the box model, which we can get into. But when you remove them, you see that change. Next, what we're going to do is remove all the padding properties. Let's see what the change is here. Now there appears to be less room on the inside of the particular element. We're going to bring all these back by just hitting Control Z to bring back the padding and bring back the margin. So the margin is the space outside of the yellow, and the padding is the space in the yellow. Pretty much the inside of the element and the outside of the element. Right now there's no padding and no margin that's added to our class, but I brought it back in, and see if you can spot the difference. More space on the left hand side, a little bit more space at the top and bottom, and a lot more space inside of the actual element. Now there is a way to shorthand this because it actually seems a little too long. So top, right, bottom, and left is how you can add specific sizes to each one of those properties. But if they're all the same, you pretty much only need to write it one time. So Margin top, right, bottom, and left is the same as writing margin 10px, because that's going to apply by just writing margin and not specifying top, left, right, and bottom. You're going to apply 10px by default to all four sides. Now padding is different, because you see we have a padding left and a padding top and a padding bottom and a padding left of 10px. But we're going to change that a little bit. Let's say we did 20px here and 20px here, right? So we have a top and a bottom that are the same size, and a right and a left that are the same size. So instead of doing 10px, 20px, 10px, 20px, we can just do 10px and 20px, and it will apply 10px to one set and 20px to the other set. And that way you can eliminate all this, and we will perhaps not see a single change. I might have gotten the orders pretty much. This is the same as writing out all four, and this is the same as writing out all four, but in this case two of the properties don't match, so that's why they look like that. We can take a look even deeper if we do inspect element, and right here we'll see that this div class a little bit. There we go. So div class is applied to both of them, right? Right? So if you unfold that, you'll see that it has a margin top, right, bottom, and left of all of 10px. And if you remove it, you'll see that the elements change quite a bit. This is adding 10px to all four sides. This is no padding, extra padding added to any of the sides. Same thing with padding. Here we have 10px and 20px, but it's really padding top, that's 10, padding bottom, that's 10, and right and left are 20. So we could change this one to 40, and now you saw that 40 for the right, for the top and bottom changed. And the same thing over here. Oh, now we got 300. And let's say we wanted to make a padding left that was slightly different. We could even include that over here. Let's see what will happen if we just add a third value. Let's see which one it would add it to. It added it to the padding bottom. So we could leave that one as 300. And then we're pretty much defining every single one. So you see the connections there, play around with it, and you'll be able to connect how you can shorthand those paddings and margins, and we'll get into exactly what padding and margin is a little later, maybe on with Flexbox. But for now, for this lesson, you should be good just changing those values and seeing what happens on your own. Let's see. And let's practice a little bit more commenting, right? So let's say we wanted to comment this out. I use command slash, which adds a front and closing comment to the entire declaration. We just got rid of padding, so let's see what that looks like. You just comment it out if you're not sure if you want to get rid of it. Just bring it back by doing control slash, or you can do it the hard way, slash asterisk slash. You see how everything else works, and that's the only one that's commented out. Comments are essential. I use every single day. They help a lot with documentation as well as testing out code to see if you can isolate a problem by commenting everything except for the thing that you're trying to test. It's very valuable. Let's move on to the next one. Adding styles to elements throughout your HTML document. In style.css, add the following inside your div. In div number 1, it says add background blue. Oops. Color blue. So that's div 1, similar to what we did earlier with our border. So which one is going to be a background of blue? Because remember we did background yellow to both div classes. So they both are already yellow. One of them is going to turn blue. Do we know which one? If we look here, which one has our div 1, it's that h1 tag. So the h1 tag, a background of blue. And there it is. In our instructions, remember I'm just jumping back and forth to the instructions. So that's what it is. Background color green to our styles.css, and go to our div 2 and go background color green. But we know what that one's going to do, so let's move on to the next one and we'll see all just together. In styles.css, add the following inside the h1p declaration. So what does that mean? We have a little comment here which just tells you exactly what's about to happen. Any h1 or p tag anywhere on the page, change it to color red. We're getting into a lot of interesting stuff about what controls our styles if there's contradictory styles, and there's lots of rules about that. It can get pretty hairy, but let's see if I can guess. We have our h1 that's in this div 1 should have a background of blue. Our second div, entire div, should have a background of green. So this whole thing will be green, and this text will be red because color only applies to text. Background color applies to the whole element. And with this one, we had a rule that said all h1s, is it h1s and p's, or all the p's inside of h1s? I guess we'll have to figure it out. Let's see if we can detect what changed here. So we said all h1s turn color red, and they're all, we have an h1 up here, and these are all p tags. We said all p tags turn red. That's a p tag, and that turned red. We said background color for div 1 is blue, that's blue. And we said background color for div 2 is green, and that's green. Okay, let's see what happens when we add a little bit even more of a complexity. Now we have only the p tags that are direct children of a div tag. Does any of that apply here? We have this hello. I'm actually going to include a little bit of message. I'm the p tag. And this p tag is a direct child of this div, and that's the rule that we're adding. These are called rules, and we're just kind of telling the document what rules to follow. For every div, for every p tag that's in a div, we are going to do the following. We're going to do color of purple. So only one thing should be purple right now, and it's that one message. If we take a look, p tag is a child of a div tag, and now it's purple. Let's keep through these. And now we said only p tags that are descendants of span tags that are children of div tags. So we have div to span to p tag, and we're going to make that one color of green. So what does that apply to? That would be like if we wanted to get over here. Do we have yes. Do we have a nested span? Yes. And do we have a p tag inside of that span? Yes. So it here should be purple. When we take a look, really hard to tell, but it looks like we actually did not get what we wanted. Span tag that's inside a p tag that's inside of span tag. Did we add it to the right spot? Yes. Let's actually do a little bit more just to make sure we're targeting the right thing. Border solid red. Let's make that 10 px. We'll make sure something's happening here. Okay. And that's the one that we target. CSS allows you to really hone in on specific elements. So that's it for this introductory lesson in CSS. Everything I did today reminded me of more complexity that I could get into, but I'm going to keep it here for now, and I might add another video to this section teaching these same concepts in a slightly different way, but I'm going to keep this one so you can see the difference and perhaps gain something from this one that I might not cover in the next one. But let's just regroup a little and go through everything that we did. So we added a class declaration and ID to this h1 tag, div class and div 1, and then in our CS we referenced those and saw what changes happened as we went. So we got to see what each element was based on the styles that we gave it, and we went one by one to see the subtle changes. Go back to this lesson, do it again, make different colors, add different margins, add different class names, different IDs, so you can see the connections, because ultimately it does have a logical sense, but you really have to play around with it to get it. In the index HTML, all we did was do that again, but show the difference between IDs. And then these were just kind of test subjects, where we had a p child of a div tag. We saw how we can combine some of these tags to be very specific in what we style. And just to show you the complexity, going one level deeper, where instead of a p tag that's a child of a div, it's a p tag that's a child of a span that's a child of a div. And we can make those classifications by either doing a comma, which would say all H1s and all P's, or we can just caret, where it's the P's that are children of divs, or we can add the three like this and say the P's that are children of spans, that are children of divs, your HTML structure, and the way that you write out these rules and specific kind of paths to the tag that you want are interconnected. They have to be the same case. They have to make the same logical sense, and you'll be able to make that specific thing border red of 10. For example, I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to add it to this one. So I want to target this area. What I want to target is a p tag child of a div, which in our example was, we'll see. I want to target something different, so I added my border to this other class, and the answer will be in what my website looks like. It will tell me what I targeted. So if we look now, places, because they're both children of divs. Right. In this case, this is a child of a div, and this one's a child of a div. Just a div. Also has that ID. So it gets hairy. We'll get into more detail in a future video, but for now, we can finish this lesson and move on to the next one. I'll see you then.